Welcome to the Armchair Detective Podcast. My name is Eric, and today I'm going to talk about a subject that I've been thinking about for quite a while now, and I'm actually thinking about possibly even writing a book about it, and that is the dark side of true crime. As some of you know, I've been following several different cases over the past 5 years, and I've started seeing a pattern with the way people are treated online who follow these different true crime cases. Also, a lot of the different problems that can arise from people getting involved in true crime that really shouldn't be involved in true crime, and the kind of devastating impacts it can have on other people. And, before I start, and I know I have a lot of critics out there, people who hate me for whatever reason. These people don't even know me, never even spoke to me, wouldn't know me from a hole in the ground. But simply because they disagree with me, they validate their status of hatred towards me and dislike for me. Anyway. My journey began in 2016 into true crime. Before I even started podcasting and doing a blog, I had gotten interested in a case of a missing woman. And just for anonymity's sake, I'm not going to use anybody's name. And I don't like when people put my own name out there, so I don't want to do that to others. So what I'll do is I'll use descriptors, but I won't use people's names. But what I'll say is, when I started doing this 5 years ago in 2016, almost immediately I started getting trolled and harassed. Seriously. Not the type of trolling that you normally would face online, where someone disagrees with you and calls you names or something to that effect. Oh no, I mean, I had my life literally torn apart because of my involvement in this person's disappearance, and that is what I want to talk about. When I started looking into this person's disappearance, one of the things that happened almost immediately was that I reached out to a team of podcasters who will remain nameless. And these two podcasters and I had 2 Skype sessions, and this would have been back in 2016, 5 years ago. And for whatever reason, we didn't agree on something. And let me just go a bit further. So before I even contacted these guys, I had started receiving harassing emails, messages on Reddit, messages on Twitter, messages on Facebook, just everywhere, from this person who clearly did not like me. And this person kept saying that they were responsible for this missing person's disappearance, constantly, daily. And I would receive just a ton of different messages from this person. But all the while, this person was impersonating someone else. In fact, this person has been impersonating people online now for nearly 17 years. But this person was impersonating this other person so well that I was under the impression the person harassing me and sending me death threats and confessing to having murdered this missing person was someone else, because the person wanted me to believe that the person was someone else. This person even used different monikers that this other person would use to try to make me believe that this other person was the one harassing me. So anyway, back to these 2 podcasters. So I told these 2 podcasters who I believed was harassing me and who I believed was responsible for this person's disappearance based on what this person was telling me in all of these messages that I was receiving. Now, these two podcasters disagreed with me, and they ridiculed me on their own podcast. Podcast is followed by thousands of people. Once they ridiculed me on their podcast, and also at CrimeCon on several occasions, I began getting threats. And I am not the only person to have received threats after being ridiculed on these two people's podcast. Before me, on episode 18 of these people's podcast, was another man who also shall remain nameless, who was ridiculed because of his appearance on their podcast. So much so that this appearance was completely removed from these two podcasters' podcast. And subsequently, this person who had appeared on their podcast began getting death threats towards himself and his family. Well, much like this person, when I communicated with these two podcasters, and quite frankly, I never appeared on their podcast. They had asked me to appear on their podcast multiple times. I always refused because, quite frankly, I was afraid that I would be ridiculed, much like the other person that had appeared on their episode 18. And so, anyway, this disagreement of okay, well, I believe this person is the one harassing me, and since this person is telling me that they murdered the missing person, then, of course, I was very critical of the person who I believe was harassing me and sending me death threats. Since me and these other two podcasters had a disagreement, they started ridiculing me on their podcast. And it got so bad that at one point they even brought in two people to discuss me personally, my full name, and saying all kinds of lies about me. And this only emboldened the person who was harassing me. And subsequently, over the past 5 years, I've received thousands of death threats. Thousands. Threats on my son's life, on my ex-wife, and even threats on my local police department. And I guess what I'm trying to get at is, I think in true crime, and I've learned this the hard way, of course. Regardless where you go on the internet, there is always going to be trolling. But this is not trolling. This is criminal, and that's the difference. And I think people don't seem to quite understand that. They seem to, so far I feel anyway, that I'm being blamed for trying to protect myself and my family, and claiming that the person harassing me is responsible for this person's disappearance because they're telling me they are. They have been telling me for 5 years. They've been telling me they're going to get away with it too. And this isn't trolling. That's the thing, And the issue is that this person hasn't only done this to me; they've done it to many others. But I guess that's not really the point of the podcast that I'm trying to make. The point is that I kind of feel like people have, and I'm I'm involving myself in this as well. But I kind of feel like we get very defensive at times, about our own theories and our own beliefs. And it's very easy for people to get to a point where they get so defensive that they start attacking the other person. And I'm guilty of that as well. I've done that. But I feel like in the true crime community, it's almost like you have a lot of different... how can I say this? My experience at least has been that there are different groups. They almost like split off into different groups, and one group attacks another group, and you have For example, in this missing persons case, you have a group that follows a journalist who the family of the missing person wants nothing to do with and doesn't even want this person involved in looking for their missing loved one. But really, ultimately, you have a whole group of following this person. And now, what's really crazy is that this journalist has been following this missing persons case for a decade, nearly a decade. And the person who had been harassing me these past 5 years is his main source for information, and has been his main source for information in this missing persons case for the past decade. So in other words, the guy who's threatening to murder my son, my ex, myself, and my local police has been this journalist's number one source for 10 years in this missing person case. All the while, what he's been doing is purposefully feeding false information to this journalist. Well, that's the thing. You can't even call this guy a journalist because, people who are in journalism, you have to write factual stories you can back up. And that's a whole other thing too. What frustrates me is, when I did have my podcast, well, I still do these YouTube videos every once in a while, but when I used to have my website and my podcast and blog, I would refer to myself as Armchair Detective. So, I'm not claiming to be an actual detective. I'm very careful to say, hey, listen, I'm an armchair detective, okay? I do this from my computer at home. I don't have a license. I don't do this professionally. But I am entitled to my opinions and without being harassed. And I think this is kind of like the dark side of true crime for me, is that people don't seem to think that people are allowed to have an opinion. And you get these different groups who, they say, well, everything has to be fact-based. Well, in a missing person case, especially cold case, you're not going to be able to get those facts, It is theories. It's always going to be theories. Even with law enforcement, even with people within law enforcement, they don't know what happened to this missing person. So they're also theorizing on, is it this person? Is it that person? The only difference is that law enforcement does it behind closed doors, whereas, a podcaster or someone else does it in front of the world. And now, over my experience, I've heard a lot of different people surmise on who they believe may have been involved in this missing persons case, and it's I find it very hypocritical that people claim, well, you shouldn't be saying this or you shouldn't be saying that, or for example, this person who had been harassing me for 5 years and sending me all these different death threats over this person's disappearance and claiming responsibility for this person's disappearance, going even as far as to say that they murdered the person, they disposed of their body, sending me multiple locations of where to dispose of the body, sending these two podcasters locations of where he claims he disposed of this person's body. He even claimed that this person ran away to Canada in order to get these two podcasters and this very same journalist to go to Canada searching for this missing person. So for this person, it was a very sadistic game. And but I think my biggest issue, though, is the fact that within the true crime community, it seems as though there is a shift for a lot of harassment and hatred. And what I mean by that is, for example, so the group, for example, that follows this journalist who's been influenced by this person harassing people online and claiming to have been responsible for this person's disappearance, those who follow this guy will harass those who do not like this guy, and vice versa. So it goes both ways, right? And same goes for these podcasters. Some people won't follow this journalist, but they'll follow the podcasters. And the podcasters, whenever they say, mean and disparaging things about other people, they will influence those who follow them, and those who follow them will then take that information, those disparaging comments, those harassing comments, and then they'll even harass the person even more. So I'll give you an example. So this journalist, 3 years ago, claimed that, he began digging into the private life of the ex-boyfriend of this missing person, to the point where he started putting out information about this person's legal issues, which he's currently having, which are completely and utterly unrelated to this missing person case. And because he put out this information, this other person, the ex-boyfriend of the missing person, started getting harassed daily. And so did his mother. And this is just, it's so sad, because this person was not even, he was almost 2,000 miles away when his ex-girlfriend disappeared. He's been cleared by law enforcement, and yet people are harassing him and his mother because some journalist is getting this information from a crazy person who claims to have murdered this missing person. It's so insane, and it's hard to comprehend how people are acting. And I'll give you another example. So once this came out 3 years ago about the ex-boyfriend of this missing person, these two podcasters also came out, and one of these two podcasters even told the mother of this ex-boyfriend to shut the F up during an episode of their podcast, which coincidentally was because this person who has been harassing me and feeding this journalist fake lies for a decade told these two podcasters that this guy and his mother have been trying to steer the narrative, whatever that's supposed to mean, of this missing person case online for several years, when in fact the person who's actually been doing that is the same person who's been harassing me and threatening me, and who claims responsibility for this person's disappearance. So, it's so convoluted for me. And outside of all of this is this other group led by people who claim to only care about the facts and claim to be connecting dots. And these people are on a high horse, basically chastising everyone they disagree with, openly calling these people out on videos like YouTube and on websites like Reddit and Twitter, and on Facebook as well. Even going as far as to create a video claiming that, for example, I was harassing a woman who I've never contacted in my life. And the harassment went so far as to have my local police, well, as I already said, they were threatened. But literally, a threat came in where a person said they were going to bomb and murder every officer in my city, and murder my son, murder my ex-wife, and murder me. It even went to a point where they said that they were going to murder my twin sister and her family. Things like this is unacceptable, absolutely unacceptable. It has no part of true crime whatsoever. And I kind of wish people would just respect each other. If you don't agree with me, that's fine. You don't have to agree with me, but you don't also have to file fake police reports to try and break my reputation. This journalist actually received a note when he was on vacation in North Carolina, and falsely blamed a person based on lies that, again, this guy who's threatening me and claims responsibility for this missing person is telling him. And because of that, this journalist filed a fake police report against a man who was not even in North Carolina when his family received this note. And the very same thing happened to me. So this guy who was harassing me called my local police one night and claimed I was suicidal and sent my local police to my apartment. This is not the first time. My local police has been here several times. A woman from Ohio who I've never met or ever spoke to claims that I was harassing her to the point that I was calling her work and apparently calling her clients. I don't even know her work number, and I don't know who her clients are. I don't know this person from a hole in the ground. And I don't want to know this person because this person's lying about me and creating false police reports. But this is the extent of how far and how convoluted this is. People who don't know me are constantly judging me online. I was accused of harassing this woman. I was accused of making threats of suicide. I was accused of breaking my son's arm. I was accused of physically assaulting my ex-wife. All these things never happened. I'm accused of all kinds of things, all because people disagree with me online. Trust me. I mean, I could share thousands of emails. But I don't want to do that because it's only going to bring attention to this individual who I strongly believe should be in prison. And I also believe this journalist and the two podcasters belong in prison as well. Certainly don't belong in podcasting or true crime, because all they've done is create a hostile environment within this so-called community, which is supposed to be trying to help the family of a missing person. But instead, many of these people have turned around and started harassing the family of this missing person and claiming that, for example, they're hiding information, they're not being truthful. And even this podcaster went as far as to accuse the father of this missing person of sexually assaulting her. He called this missing person a slut, claimed that she was a sociopath, and all kinds of other things. And it's really disheartening because the whole point of true crime and why I got into this was to help other people. And I have successfully helped other people. In this case, I don't think it matters what I do or say or think. People will inevitably harass me for whatever reason. And it is frustrating because a lot of these people don't understand. They don't have the information I have because I have all of these messages over these past 5 years. These people don't. These people don't have what I have or what I've sent to law enforcement. And what I've been trying to do these past 5 months is I've been trying to push as hard as I can because I want this person who's threatening me and my family and my local police to be put in prison before he can follow through with his threats. Now, this person I don't live in the U.S. I live in Canada. But this person's name has actually been flagged at the U.S.-Canadian border, so he can't even cross into my country. But this guy's so crazy, I don't know whether he's capable of hiring people to harm me and my family. So I want to make sure that I push hard to try and get this guy off the street before he hurts me, my family, my local police, and possibly someone that lives close to him. Another person who had been following the same case, a woman, actually had to request a restraining order against this guy because she feared him. And the sad part is because she sought out that restraining order, this guy who, again, has been sending me these death threats and claims to have murdered this missing person, went to this journalist again and gave him all this fake information on this poor woman in order to have this journalist harass her, which this journalist did. He harassed this woman who has a restraining order against him. So did these two podcasters. So really what you have, I think what you have is the wrong people involved in true crime. This journalist, these two podcasters, this case getting way too much media attention than it should have. Too much information was sent out, largely because of this journalist and these two podcasters. And I think, it's one thing when you look at a true crime case, especially cold case, and you give your opinions. Everyone's entitled to an opinion, regardless. You may not agree with that opinion, but that does not entitle you to harass the person, nor does it entitle you to make YouTube videos and calling these people out that you disagree with and try to make them seem like they're insane or that what they're doing is, wrong. And people are entitled to say whatever they want. That's first and foremost, but you have to do it in a respectful manner. And I don't see that anymore. I've never seen it really. I mean, I've seen it with other cases which haven't garnered as much media attention. But in this particular case, it's rampant. It's daily. It's constant. At one point, I was getting at least 5 to 10 death threats a day. Obviously, that's stopped since the Department of Homeland Security had to get involved after my local police department was threatened with a bomb threat. But ultimately, I'm very tired of the harassment. For me, true crime should be something where you can have, intelligent conversations, where you can exchange theories, ideas, thoughts, without being harassed, without being threatened, without, and it's frustrating. I've never seen so much trolling in my life than I have with a missing person case that I've been looking into these past 5 years. And it's insane. How can grown adults possibly rationalize sending fake tips in a missing person case? But what this person did is they've been doing this for many, many years. Going as far as to impersonate the missing person to try and make people believe that this person is alive in order to have these people stop looking for this missing person. I mean, this person went as far as to send me a photo of a stuffed monkey. Now, there was a stuffed monkey left in this missing woman's vehicle. And what had happened is this person kept asking me to close out all my social media accounts because they didn't want me to follow this person's case anymore because they were afraid that I would expose them as being the person responsible for their disappearance. And what I told this person is, okay, well, I'll remove all of my social media accounts if you can send me proof that this person is alive. And that's when I received a picture of a stuffed monkey. And the person subsequently went online and claimed, oh, no, it was just a harmless joke, blah, 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 blah. No, I have emails from this person stating, close out all your media accounts. Anyway, it's with all the emails I've received and all the communication I've received over 5 years from this person, I am absolutely convinced that they are responsible for this person's disappearance based on what I've been told by the person, based on what they've done to myself, to other people, based on the fact that they have sent fake tips over and over and over again for 17 years. Anyway, but that's my opinion, and I have every right to that opinion without being judged. And it frustrates me that people think they have the right to judge me because I disagree with them. So ultimately, I just wish people would just respect each other. If you disagree with me, that's fine. It doesn't mean I'm wrong. You could be wrong too. Ultimately, it's irresponsible for people like journalists and these podcasters that have thousands of followers to put out blog posts and things like that simply to attack those they don't like or those they disagree with, or say things on their podcast to attack other people who follow this missing person's disappearance in order to, I mean, really think about it. When these two podcasters brought on these two people to talk negatively about me, these two people who have never met me, don't know me from a hole in the ground, the whole reason they did this was to rally their followers, essentially to harass me. That's unacceptable. You know, when this journalist wrote a blog post calling me lunatic and insane and claiming I'm harassing this woman from Ohio who I've never met, never spoke to, don't know from a hole in the ground. This journalist's followers are going to look at that, read that. They're going to share it on their Twitter. They're going to like it. And it just takes that one crazy person to say, oh, well, this insane guy from Canada, well, I'm going to find out where he lives and I'm going to send him a bunch of death threats. You know, so I'm so tired of these past 5 years in true crime, especially with this particular missing person case. I think anybody who knows me knows exactly what I'm talking about, but I'm not going to name names because I don't like it when people name my name, so I won't name anybody else's name. But I do want to air out my frustration because there are many reasons why I believe this person is involved in this person's disappearance based on statements that this person has made for 5 years. Based on their actions online, based on the fact they've sent fake tips, based on the fact they've impersonated this missing person. And yet I'm being chastised online because people disagree with me. It's ridiculous. And then you have these other true crime podcasters who, again, attack other people because they disagree with them. Well, whatever happened to freedom of speech? Whatever happened to having the right to your opinion? Listen, if someone wants to be wrong, they have that right. But do it in a respectful manner, you know? I don't know how many times I've seen people being disrespectful to each other just basically because they disagree with one another. It's like, okay, well, instead of just saying, well, you're an idiot for thinking that, I never considered, why not just react and say, well, I never considered that. Well, that's a possibility. Instead of saying, well, this guy, what he's doing is dangerous and he shouldn't be saying this and blah, 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 blah. It's just ridiculous. Like, just leave me the hell alone. I'm allowed to have an opinion. I'm allowed to have an opinion without you judging me. Like, I don't judge you. Just leave me alone, you know? And I think as far as I'm concerned, I don't really think that true crime is a good thing online based on my experience, because there are people who want to benefit from these victims and make money from them. These two podcasters, for example, made over 130 episodes of their podcast based solely on this one missing person. This journalist has written thousands of blog posts over the years. 99% of them are all false information regarding this missing person. So it's frustrating to daily see these people go online and write more and more falsehoods about this missing person, and then having all their thousands of followers spread these lies, and then have these followers attack the ex-boyfriend of the missing person, or the mother of the ex-boyfriend, or the woman who has a restraining order against this guy, or me, or anyone else really for that matter. I mean, I've seen, dirt being dug up on people simply because some journalist didn't like him. And in some cases, it almost seems like instead of investigating the missing person, they're actually investigating those trying to help the family of the missing person, trying to dig up dirt on them so they can use it to try to ruin their credibility or their reputation. And that has no place in true crime. You know, you're not supposed to be trying to investigate those investigating, and we're not even investigators. I mean, we're just normal people giving opinions, you know? And that's the thing. I think when I see these two podcasters, for example, and they call themselves, it's funny because I called myself an armchair detective, and my name is so synonymous with this missing person case now that everybody online who's ever heard of this missing person knows who I am. It's so insane. But anyway, these two podcasters disliked me so much that they didn't want to refer to themselves as armchair detectives. And so they call themselves citizens detective. And they truly believe they're detectives, and they actually think that they're going to help solve crime. You know, I'm not delusional. I know I'm not an actual detective. And out of a lot of the cases I've looked into, some of them I believe I know who's responsible. But it's just an opinion, you know. But in some cases where the person has actually admitted to me or confessed over and over again for 5 years, well over 1,000 times, I tend to believe them, especially when they're threatening to murder me and my family and my entire police department, their local police. So anyway, that's all I have for today. Thanks for listening. Take care, everyone. Until next time.